Let me preface this evening by saying this. I am quite positive that we're going to step on some people's toes tonight, because what we're talking about tonight is how to fight fair. How to
fight well as a married couple.
How to fight well as a married couple.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead and tweet the link, or I'm gonna post the link on Facebook.
You do that, and I'll do our little
and you just
spiel.
let them know what we're doing.
Yeah. So this is part 2 of our series that we're going to be doing for a few weeks here, called "How to Be Married and Still Be a Christian." And it's one of the hardest things that we've had to do. Married life alone is rough.
We're glad to help anyone that we can.
Yeah. And, marriage is an awesome thing. Sometimes it doesn't feel awesome. And sometimes it's difficult. And sometimes it is a fight. But everything that's worthwhile is worth a good fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And,
Absolutely.
And so making two worlds crash into one, and having the awesome opportunity to be exactly we are yet another symbol, a picture of the way that Christ is with the church. He is the husband, the church is the bride, and he wants to be with his bride in a relationship, in a married relationship, where we are his and he is ours, and we get to live that out in a married relationship. We get to live out that symbology in a married relationship where we...
So what you're saying is marriage is more important than just living with someone you love, and...
Yep. Marriage is the fulfillment of God's plan, because he said, come together. Marriage is a fulfillment of God's plan because he said, be fruitful and multiply. So
we've done that.
Yeah. We got fruitful. And marriage helps to make each other better. In fact, the scripture says, where there are... woe to you if you're alone, but if you have somebody with you, they can pick you up, and a 3-cord strand is not easily broken.
Fruitful.
Yep. But
y'all have been fruitful, Erica.
That's right. But you have somebody to help you and pick you up and live life with and tell the story of God with in your life. Marriage is an awesome thing. I'm sorry. I've kind of taken this. But anyway, we're on number 2. If you have any questions that we can't answer here, because we're trying to work through some stuff, like we said, how to fight fair, and so how to fight well, which sounds like an oxymoron, but it's really not.
It's not, and let's get to that.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm heeing and hawing, but if you wanna send a question, hemming and hawing, excuse me. If you want to send us a question, you can tweet us at MasterworkCols, direct message us, and we would love to answer any questions. Or you can send us an email at masterworkcolumbus@gmail.com. All right, take it away, babe.
So, first of all, let's just say this. David and I don't always fight well. In fact, sometimes we fight awfully.
Like last night.
So, so we are not holding ourselves up as the pinnacle of how to fight well. We're just saying, hey, we've had a lot of bumps in the road, so we know some really good ways to help you. We've actually... the man is in heaven now with Jesus, but we actually had a really, really great counselor about 5 years ago who helped us, and we all the time quote what he said and use what he said, and so he helped thousands of people, hundreds of people, maybe, I don't know, countless people.
I would say thousands, but
in his lifetime.
It's probably trickled down.
Yeah, I mean, because what we're doing, we'll teach to our kids now and everything. But, so we want to give you the benefit of that, and so let's talk about...
So you don't have to pay all that money. We'll just tell you what he said. And what's worked and what hasn't for us.
We're not undercutting his business because he's no longer in business.
Right, yeah, he's singing Holy, Holy, Holy now.
Okay, so how to fight well.
Yeah.
Okay, is that, possible at all?
And fighting's not a bad thing. Fighting is okay as long as you don't, as long as you don't hurt each other by doing it. Saying how you feel and talking to each other is a good thing.
Okay.
In the midst of difficulty.
But we have to answer, what is a fight?
Right.
Okay, we have to settle in our minds with one another, with your spouse, what a fight is for you guys, and what's the benefit, what is the end goal of the fight you want to have. So do you want to is the end result of the fight that you're having with your spouse, or that you will eventually have if you're not yet married, is the end result to be an earthly gain where one of you comes out right and the other one has to eat crow? And that's not really becoming, number one, and number two, it's not scriptural. It's just not the way God designed it. God gives us His word as our guidebook for life.
Let's put it this way: if you fight and one of you wins at the end of the fight, you didn't do it right.
Yeah, Scripture says, and David brought this up a moment ago when we were talking. Scripture says that if you store up treasures on earth, if you get those wins now, if you jab at your spouse enough until they surrender and they say, okay, you win, then that's an earthly gain that you won't store up treasures for in heaven.
Right.
But if you honor the Lord, and which is what we're going to talk about, if you honor the Lord and the way you fight with one another, then you're storing up heavenly treasures. And so I want to encourage you at the beginning of a fight, every time you set out in a difficulty with your spouse, I want to encourage you to set in your mind whether or not you want to reap earthly gains or heavenly gains. Do I want the end result of this to be what I want it to be, or do I want to reap heavenly rewards? And so let's talk about that. Let's talk about how we can store up heavenly rewards. Micah 6:8, and I'm going to put my glasses on. So Micah 6:8 says, "He has shown you, O mortal man," in other words, everybody. He's shown everybody what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? And when he says, what does the Lord require of you, it means in the way the verses prior talk about how we live and how we act. Yeah. So what does the Lord require of us and how we act? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. So let's talk about justice, mercy, and humility for a second.
In relationship context.
In relationship context. So these are the three. This is just a really good rule for marriage. Number one, let's talk about justice. So think about it this way. Think about it legally. One person in a fight cannot legitimately be the arbitrator of the fight and still reach an end desired result that will benefit both parties.
Yes.
Why is that? That's because I have my own perspective. Because David has his own perspective. I can't arbitrate a fight between myself and David. I can't be the judge who is the executioner of justice, who says this is justice and this is not justice. I can't be the judge and still be a party to the fight.
Because we all have our side of the story. There's my side of the story. There's Kara's side of the story. And then there's God's side of the story, which is
the truth.
But it's just truth.
So there are 16 places in the scripture that I found tonight where God is called the righteous judge.
Yeah.
Okay? And so that basically means that God is the one who uses righteousness as the standard. We use the law. We use what's fair. We use, here's what I want to see happen as a result of this fight. But God uses righteousness, His righteousness, as a standard to fight. And
His justice doesn't look like our justice. Many a times we use the word justice to say, I won. If
justice was served.
Yeah, justice was served, or if a case went favorably, then we received justice today. But the reality is that God's justice doesn't work like our justice.
And sometimes
His courts don't work like ours.
Can be way different than ours. And I'm going to just go here for a second, and it may step on your toes. I just want to say I love you, and I don't mean to step on your toes, but I'm just going to say this. God's word tells us that Satan accuses. And so when we use accusatory language and when we stand in accusation, this is how we tell the boys. You're speaking the devil's language when you accuse.
Yeah.
So when you stand in judgment of your spouse, then you're acting as if you are the one who sits in the judgment seat. And Scripture clearly tells us that that's God. And I want to read two scriptures. 2 Timothy 4:8. I'll just summarize them. Says that God is the righteous judge who will award men on the day of redemption. Okay, so God is the righteous judge. And then Psalm 9:4, I loved this one, also says that God upholds our cause, enthroned as the righteous judge. God upholds our cause. So when we uphold our cause, when we go and we say, okay, I'm going to fight my cause, I'm going to fight against you for my cause in order to see my side of the story, in order to see that one, then we totally dethrone God. And I would rather have God uphold my cause and do my fighting for me, because God's able to get it done even better than I can. And so when I go about fighting for the way I want to see justice executed, then God's not obligated to be the righteous judge. God's not obligated to see that justice is served. Right. Even if you are right, you're completely, get this, women, because I know we like to be right. If you're right in the situation and you try to act as judge against your husband, then you completely negate the fact that God is righteous judge and that he's able and he will act as the justice bringer into the situation if you just would step back and allow the Lord. So that's a hands-on. I mean, and that's totally hard for controllers.
Okay.
Number 2, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt. Two things that are there that I just want to mention that were really powerful for me. Number 1, in a fight and in a conversation, and these are just practical things. When you are expressing to the other person how you feel, it's really easy at that moment to be an accuser, like Kara just said, and to make accusations. Well, you did this, and you did this, and you did this,
and so it's only fair that this happened, or that you say this, or that you fix this, or
the practical. There's two things there. Number 1, the practical thing is to use "I feel" statements. So when you get in the middle of a fight and this stuff is going on, you have to take a step back and say, this is how I am feeling in this moment, or this is what I am thinking at this moment. Instead of saying, this is you, what you have to do is take a step back and say, hey, this is how I am feeling. This is what I see happening. Help me to understand. And then the other thing is the I owe you card is going to kill your marriage quicker. Huh?
We have kids.
Yeah, sorry. The I owe you card is going to destroy marriages. The thought that says you owe me. The thought that says you owe me for something, and the entitlement of that, except for the right things. Okay, yes, we owe each other. We owe each other the roof over our heads. We owe each other companionship.
But isn't it loathsome to be told that you owe somebody something even though you know it? I mean, isn't it loathsome for the government to send you a notice and tell you how much you owe them in taxes, even though you know it and you're making monthly payments on it or whatever? Isn't that loathsome? It makes me want to say, I don't owe you a thing, bro. And I mean, let's just be honest, that's retaliatory, but it's an incendiary statement. It just makes things erupt into flames when I hear someone say, you owe me.
But there are, the marriage contract that you entered into when you said your vows, I think is a great way to I mean, ultimately that's a proactive deal.
But that goes back to that thing where Psalm 9:4 says that as we allow the Lord to be enthroned in righteous, in the seat of the righteous judge, then he will enact our cause.
Yeah. Okay. And one of the things I want to say before she jumps on, I know you're headed to number 2. One of the most powerful things I ever did. Kara and I have been married for 10 years. Some of you may have been married for more.
Or less.
But with that comes a lot of baggage. There's a lot of water that's passed underneath the bridge with Kara and I. One of the most powerful things that I ever did, and I continue to have to do it on a regular basis, is to imagine myself in the courts of heaven, because there's lots of legal terms in the scripture, covenant and that kind of thing, and they're legal understandings. So to imagine myself in the courts of heaven with God as the judge, and me holding all of the list of wrongs that I believe that Kara has done against me, because the reality is when we hold on to those wrongs, we are basically keeping a record of sins. Now realize that God himself sent Jesus to basically wipe away that record. And so now here we are with our feeble list, saying I'm holding these things and I'm sitting as an accuser against my mate. That's the wrong position for us to take. We're not the accusers. The enemy is the accuser. We're not supposed to be joining with him in accusation. And so to basically write a thing that says I drop all of the charges, or to say to yourself I'm dropping all of the charges that I have made against this person. You have to do that. You have to take all the past and say, I drop these charges. And you may even pray it or write it out. I wrote it out and signed it. I drop all of the charges that I have made against you in the past. I'm sorry. I know.
And that's all right. We'll talk more about that in a second.
Yeah.
But so we talked about justice. So let's talk about mercy. Matthew 5:7, Jesus tells the people, blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. And I don't know about you,
Good.
but I need mercy shown to me.
Yeah.
So that scripture tells us if we show mercy, then we're going to, if we sow it in our relationship with others, like a farmer sows seed into the soil, if we plant seeds into the soil of our marriage, then the seed of mercy, we're going to reap mercy. Mercy is going to grow out of that ground.
Yep.
However, if you sow discord and if you sow anger and if you sow unforgiveness, then that's what you're going to reap as well.
Yeah, the scripture says God will not be mocked. You will
mercy
reap it,
is love in action. Mercy is the Band-Aid on the boo-boo of your soul. Mercy brings help and healing into a situation where there's hurt. And Jesus, in Jeremiah, in the Old Testament, Jesus is, his blood is referenced as the balm in Gilead. Jeremiah says, where's the balm in Gilead for the people of God?
Prophetically
referenced. Jeremiah is saying the people of God need the forgiving blood of Jesus Christ. So we are covered. Go with me for a second. I'm going to explain it all. But we are covered by the blood of Jesus. When we ask Jesus to forgive us and to help us to live for him, we are covered by the blood of Jesus. And Jesus' blood has forgiven our sins, past, present, and future. So when we ask Jesus to forgive us, when you accept Jesus in your heart, he has now forgiven every future sin that you will ever commit. Not just the sins that you have already committed. Number one, that blows my mind. Number two, here's the point I want to make. That Jesus' blood, the forgiveness of Jesus, is the balm in Gilead. And so I was like, well, what's the balm in Gilead? It was medicinal.
By the way, she's saying balm as in like
ointment, salve.
like ointment, not like a bomb in Gilead, because
no, not B-O-M-B, B-A-L-M. Okay, so balm in Gilead, it was a medicinal ointment, but not only was it medicinal, but it was perfume as well. So get this, the mercy of Jesus, which was the mercy. Oh, you were wondering? Yeah, it's in Jeremiah. Jeremiah 8. Jeremiah 8. So where Jesus' mercy poured out over us and given to us in his forgiveness is healing to our soul, it's also fragrant and sweet to us. And the forgiveness of God makes us love him more. The mercy that you show to your spouse is not only healing to their soul, but it's also fragrant and it draws them to you. God's love, Paul says in Romans, God draws us with his loving kindness. He draws us with his kindness. When we show mercy, when we put a boo-boo on the soul or on the little spirit of your spouse, when you do that, you draw them to you. You draw their heart to you. Yeah. So justice and mercy. Go ahead.
Can I add something onto that? Mm-hmm. Can I kind of sort of weave some of this stuff in there? Mm-hmm. So here's some really practical ways not to do that, okay?
And if you're wanting points to write down, these are the points to write down.
Yeah, these are some tactics. These are the tactics. She's bringing up strategy, I'm kind of bringing up tactics. So, you got to be careful with your words. The incendiary language, bringing in things like the person's family, and saying things like, well, that's exactly what your mother would do. Using words like stupid and you're so stupid, and those things don't help. They're not helping the patient. And remember last week we talked about you got to look at marriage as if you're both going towards a patient. Your marriage is the patient.
Imagine yourself in the operating. We talked about this last week, and I think it's worthy of saying.
Sure, yeah.
Again, for people who have joined us for the first time, imagine yourself in the operating room. You've got scrubs on. Your spouse is on one side of the operating table. You are on the other side of the operating table. You both have scalpels in your hand, and you both have a needle in your hand to suture. So, every action or reaction and word that you do either sews the patient up and heals the patient, cuts out the bad stuff in the patient, or you just go through and slash. So don't slash the patient. And the patient in the middle between you is your marriage. And you can kill that patient that's laying on the operating table, or you can bring it back to life again. So you essentially have healing in your hands for that patient, or you have harm, you have wounding, you have death in your hands.
Yeah, so remember the words that you speak. There's power of life and death in the tongue. Realize that you really, because of the influence that you hold as the husband or the wife, that is a great responsibility. One of the greatest stories that I ever heard a pastor say about this kind of thing is that they say, I keep a picture of my wife on my desk, and every time I get angry, I look at that picture, he says, because she's got such life in her eyes. And what I don't want to do is diminish the spark in my mate's eyes, to try and kill the soul. The point of a fight is not to make the other person sorry that they married you.
Or sorry that they're alive, or sorry...
Or sorry that you're right.
Okay, wait. The point of a fight is never to make a person sorry.
Yeah.
Period. Never to make a person sorry. And I know that's contrary to our thought process as humans, but go ahead.
Some other things. Don't use absolutes, like you always do this, or you never do that, because always and never are seldom true.
And I want to say that again, because the counselor that was paid lots of money to help us said this, and it's helped us so much. When one of us has said, you always do this, or you never do this, the other one will in turn say, okay, always and never are seldom true. And it's so right. Always and never are seldom true.
And the way you get out of that, the way you get out of blaming is to say, I feel, and we talked about that earlier. But you also got to think before you sleep. Before you sleep. Sorry,
think.
apparently I'm ready to go. But you got to think before you speak. And think, THINK. Tell me about that real quick, Kara.
True.
Is what you're saying true?
Is what you're saying helpful?
Helpful.
Is what you're saying inspiring?
Inspiring.
Is what you're saying necessary?
Necessary.
And is what you're saying kind?
Kind.
And I use that with my kids.
I've used this over here. Sorry.
Yeah, I use that with Isaiah, not with Judah yet. But is what you're saying true, helpful, inspiring, necessary, and kind?
Because the problem is we get into situations, and either we'll bring up, like we just said, the absolutes, always and never, but those aren't true.
Or you may bring up something. We need to turn our volume down because of the kids.
Yeah, sorry.
You may bring up something that's totally true, but it may be unnecessary.
May be totally unnecessary to mention at that current point.
You may say something.
Can I say something off the unnecessary thing?
Yes.
Deal with the issue. Don't deal with the past 40 years of stuff. Don't deal with the fight that you had 4 weeks ago. Deal with the actual issue that just happened and find the underlying reason. And
don't make overarching generalizations about your spouse's nature. Don't make overarching generalizations about who your spouse is. And I want to say this. I know you don't have this on your list.
That's all right.
Do not ever assign intent to your spouse's actions. Don't state that you know what your spouse is thinking, and don't infer from your spouse's words. So don't infer from your spouse's words what you think they're saying. Allow them to clarify.
Yeah.
Don't assign intent to their actions. And don't, what was the first one I said?
I don't know.
I don't remember, but those
rewind and find that.
Yeah, rewind and find it out.
Okay, but a good way to do that is to reflectively listen to your spouse. And this is something that Karen. Okay, so go ahead, Kara, and I will reflectively listen. So tell me something that you're
and make it up or for real?
Oh no, well if you want to get dirty on screen, then let's dig into our deep issues here. No, just kidding. Whatever you want to say.
Well, this is one. Okay, this is one that I think a lot of wives might find that they have a grief with over their husband, with their husbands about. David, I find sometimes when I'm with the kids and I am working really hard to get them bathed or to get them fed or to help them to get through the things they need to get through, to do things with them, I find sometimes I get really frustrated because I feel like you're on your phone a lot playing games, or I feel like you're disengaged on Facebook, or I feel like you are not aware of what's happening around you.
Okay, so let me see if I understand what you're saying. Let me repeat it back to you. I hear you saying that you're working hard to get the kids taken care of, mm-hmm. and that you feel as if I am not there. I'm not engaged in what's going on with the kids, and that you would like for me to be better engaged and better hands-on when the kids are getting baths and things like that. Well, most of the time that the kids are awake, in order to be able to share in the responsibility of the kids together. Mm-hmm. Is that what I'm saying? Okay. So that's reflectively listening. Talking back, making sure that you understand what it is that your spouse says, because the worst thing that you can do, miscommunication and misinformation is like the cardinal sin of relationship. You've got to be able to speak to the other person, have them hear you, because the devil would love nothing more than to put a filter between you and your spouse, that everything that they say to you is hateful. And everything they say to you...
Or that everything they say to you is for their agenda. Like this.
Right.
Like this. Early on in our marriage, I would say, David, let's stay home and eat. I want to cook something.
Why do you always try to control what I eat? So
okay, I wanted to make a hamburger for you because I know you like hamburgers, and I thought I'd do something special for you.
Okay, but you know that I like to eat out. Why are you trying to keep me at home? Okay, so there you go. What I'm inferring out of that situation is I'm inferring my own thought on what she's doing instead of reflectively listening and saying, what is it really that we're trying to do here? The truth is, she was trying to give me something that I wanted, that she knew I wanted, and she wanted from it to come from her, and for it to be good, to build our relationship. She provides, I eat, which is the story of my life, as you can see. Okay,
but that's what I was talking about when I said don't assign intent. During that situation you just spoke of, is it best to address it in some way while it's happening? You know what? You just need to gauge that. Sometimes it depends on if you can remain calm about it. If you can say, would you help me to understand what your motivation is? I'm really interested in listening, because let's talk about why you would like to do that. What are the reasons? And if you can do it and your spouse can receive it as reflective listening, and that you just got to know your audience. If your spouse has had a bad day, you may just want to leave that one on the table for like the next morning after you make a toaster waffle and like bring her coffee in bed or something.
You got to know when to hold them. You got to know when to fold them, and you got to know when to walk away. I mean, honestly, you have to get to the point where if this situation, if the tenor and the direction of this conversation is only going to go in bad places right now because you're angry or you're hungry or you're tired
That's hangry. I call you hangry.
I have blood sugar problems, so like if I don't eat, there's gonna be a fight. But or if you're super stressed about something, you got to know when to walk away from the situation and just go, listen, let's have this conversation at another time. Let's approach this in a different way at another time, and let's see if we can't talk it through.
But also, sometimes in the moment it's okay. I think that's a great question. I was just looking at where I was in my notes. I think sometimes it's great to handle it in the moment just to get clarification. You don't want to walk around with a festering boil in your spirit. You don't want to walk around angry at your spouse. And so if you say to your spouse humbly, hey, listen, I just need to ask you because I want to love you and I want to know that you love me too. Could we clarify that together? And let me tell you lovingly and without hatefulness how I'm thinking. And you tell me lovingly and without hatefulness how you're thinking. Also, know that you cannot wake up every morning and go to bed every night believing that your spouse is your enemy. Yeah. You cannot do that. They picked you out for some reason. I mean, you may have had more of a hand in the picking than they did. David, I believe, had a little more in the hand of picking than I did. Yeah. He sort of labeled me, and I didn't take the label off. He said, that's mine. That's mine. But you can't wake up in the morning believing your spouse is your enemy. Yeah. And you can't go to bed at night thinking, at all points in the day, he said that because he's my enemy. She said that because she's awful. He said that because he's just mean and cranky. She said that because she's controlling. You can't do that. That will destroy your marriage in a skinny minute.
Yeah, and I know you're headed into something, but this is the last thing I'll say. And if you don't hear anything else that I don't know about Kara, but that I have said tonight, hear this. Throw away the divorce card.
Please, throw it away.
Throw away the divorce card. Leveraging that is not fair. Because what that's basically doing is making an ultimatum. Now, there are times for ultimatums. I completely understand that. And usually it's an abusive situation.
And in an abusive situation.
Or a substance abuse situation.
The ultimatum is never... the ultimatum is always, let me say instead of never, the ultimatum is always, I love you. I need to step out of the picture for a season. I'm gonna go stay with my mom, or I'm gonna go stay with my friend, or your same-sex friend, not opposite-sex friend, or
unless it's a family.
I'm gonna help you find help. And the ultimatum is never for harm. The ultimatum is always for help. But sometimes Paul tells us sometimes we do need to separate for a time, but then there needs to be a coming back together. I think it's Paul.
Yeah, it is Paul. And so don't leverage divorce against somebody in order to be able to change what they're doing. To be very clear, it's not going to change them anyway.
And I want to say this. I know in some relationships there are controllers, and I'm not down. I'm not being critical. I'm just saying sometimes we all have controlling tendencies at times. Unless you are just absolutely ambitionless and you are either Mother Teresa or Jesus, and I don't think you're either one of them. So we all have controlling tendencies about this thing or that thing, and it may be just in this amount, but
Go ahead, babe. I know you've been... I'm sorry I interrupted.
That's all right. I was just getting through my thought.
Yeah, dude.
Thank you for my permission.
I'm sorry. I was just saying,
okay.
Rock and roll. Light that candle.
Thank you. I will.
It was encouragement. I was encouraging you.
Okay. Now you've distracted me. What were you saying before? Because I lost my train of thought.
I wasn't saying anything.
No, what were you saying? What was the point that you were making before that?
Throw away the divorce card. It's not leveraging.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Leverage. I want to talk about leverage real quick for a second. For those of us who have a control tendency about a specific issue, then know that if you get anything with control, you're going to have to maintain it by control. And so it can either tire you or tire your spouse, or both. And you're going to end up frustrated because you're going to have to either maintain the control on your spouse, or your spouse is going to have to constantly be willing to be controlled, or you're both going to be frustrated and you're going to say, you're not doing what I want you to do. And your spouse is going to say, are you serious? I don't want to do that. That's not fair. And so that's going to incite issues. So don't leverage anything ever, ever, ever is the story. Never leverage anything, because anything that you leverage, then you're going to have to maintain it by the same measure. So if I say to David, hey, David, I'm going to take away your debit card because I don't want you to gamble. David, I don't know that David has ever gambled a day in his life. But I'm going to take away all your cash and your debit card and the checkbook, and you have no access to money. Then I have to hold the purse strings for everything. I mean, all the time, constantly. Otherwise, if he's going to gamble, he's going to find a way to gamble. So I have to maintain that. I'm going to get really exhausted. And so anyway, don't do that. Don't do that. Humility. So we've talked about justice, we've talked about mercy, and we've talked about humility. And now let's talk about humility. So humility is this: the knowledge of your own guilt and blame. And the scripture tells us that God loved us enough to give us Jesus. And that Jesus was willing to save us of our sins, even when we, get this phrase, even when we were enemies of God. I don't know that I have ever been willing to save my enemy.
Yeah.
I don't know that I ever would be willing to save somebody who shot me in the face, or to save someone who mortally wounded someone I loved. I don't know that I would ever be willing to do that. But God, when we were his enemies, God sent Jesus to save us, to like pick us up out of our sin, and to give us new life.
He loved us before we loved him.
So if we are enemies of God, and God still loved us, then can't we, in humility, can't we remember our state, and can't we share that same love? Mercy, this goes back to what we were talking about a minute ago, but mercy is never only for the receiving. Mercy is to be received by God, from God, so that we can give it away. And when you can truly give away mercy, when you can receive mercy to give it away, then you have reached humility. And I want to look at Philippians 2 really quickly. And I'm going to put your spouse in there. I'm just going to put it into the context that we are talking about right now. But Philippians 2, beginning in verse 3, says, and it's talking about how Christ was humble. So Christ's example of humility is ours. So, verse 3, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider your spouse better than yourself. I'm going to say that again. In humility, consider your spouse better than yourself. It says consider others. But how hard is that for some of us? That the Lord would ask us to consider others. Not only just considering others, but considering our spouse.
Yeah.
And I know some of you are in a torn up marriage. Some of you have great marriages, and you're like, what are you talking about? Yeah, we'll just listen to us to share it with somebody else. But some of you are in a torn up marriage, and you have to consider your spouse who has hurt you better than yourself. Let's continue reading. Each of you should not only look to your own interests, but also to the interests of your spouse. Your attitude toward your spouse should be the same as that of Jesus, who, being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but made himself nothing, taking on the very nature of a servant. Serve your spouse. Being made in human likeness and being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to death, even death on a cross. Therefore, God exalted him to the highest place and gave him the name that is above every name. And so and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. And I'm going to give you the last little bit. But
no, I have something to tack onto this that I think is just really great.
Okay, great. But we talked about earthly gains and heavenly gains. And I want to go back to that verse we talked about that says, don't store up for yourself treasures on earth where moth and rust.
Most?
I always have a hard time saying
And
this verse. Moth and rust.
Rough.
Cause decay. And would you
Sorry, I'm sorry.
And where thieves break in and steal. But instead of doing that, store up treasures for yourself in heaven. And what do those heavenly treasures look like? We have no clue. But it's way better than this down here. So you want to tack something on.
So the humility thing, and I think that this is something that's really important. You know, we see this with a lot. We see this with a lot of things. Okay, all right. So I used to groom horses, right? When I was in high school, it was a summer job, and I'd get to ride them every now and then. I knew how far I could push each one of those horses to the limit in terms of running to see how fast that they could run. But the reality is that at a certain spot, each one of those horses could only run or could only jump so much before they were just pretty much done.
Is your horse story going somewhere?
It is. It's going somewhere. Stay with me. I could push them as hard as I possibly could, but I knew that there was a limit. There was a cap that they could reach. Okay. We think that applies to everything. Even cars, you can only go so fast in cars, especially under the law, and your phones, you can only push your data usage so far, but we don't think of that in terms of the people in our lives.
For me, it's cloud storage.
Yeah, right.
All those pictures of the babies.
All those pictures, you can push it to a certain point, but we believe that's true, except for everything except for our spouses. The difficulty is that when we get into this humility mindset, you begin to recognize the cap that you can push your spouse to. And there are moments, and marriage is a continual work, it's a continual understanding, it's a continual learning experience. But there are places that I get to in fights with Kara, in conversations with Kara, where I come to a place where I realize I don't know if I can push this anymore, because I'm not sure that our current growth level, that we are at the place where we can come to a resolution that I would find acceptable here.
I attest that you get that place sometimes.
Because the reality is that Kara, just like myself, and in humility, what's great about humility is you start to look back and reference yourself and say, I'm broken, and I've got some serious issues.
Humility is having God's perspective on yourself as well as others. So how does God see you? But how does God also see your spouse?
I'm broken, and I've got some serious issues. There's only so far in certain things that Kara can push me until I come to the point where I can't go anymore. There are certain things I'm willing to accept, and certain things that God has not revealed to me yet. And the interesting thing about this is the phraseology that says you don't know what you don't know. So there's parts of me that I don't know are even broken, that have not been revealed to me to understand that they are broken. So understanding the broken place that we both come from. Hey, look, you know what? And in that humility, and it says, think of others higher than yourselves. Look, Kara has some amazing things going for her. There are some places in each one of our relationships, in each of us, that there are broken places. And God, and you have to pray that God would heal those places, would heal those spaces. Because when you start to tread on those things, you're going to find that you've reached an impasse on some things. And at that point, when you come to that point in a relationship, where you fight against it and you rail against it and you keep asking for it to change and nothing's happening, the only thing that you can do at that point is to step back and pray for your partner. Because you can reach a place where you keep banging your head and saying, why don't you understand? And there's a problem. The problem is that you are looking from either your perspective instead of God's perspective in the situation. You want something here that's not attainable, or B, that person is not at a place in their life with Christ, in their in the maturity of their walk, in even their own self-expression, that they're not willing to go.
And also your spouse is walking his or her own journey. And the Lord, okay, some of us may hear that and say, so what do you mean? I have to continue to live in pain? I have to continue to live in difficulty? And the answer is, sometimes for a season, yes.
Yeah.
But Paul tells us that he said, what book was it in?
I don't know. Say it.
Oh, sorry. I hadn't said it yet. You can't read my mind.
That's another thing. That's another thing that we expect. Read my mind.
Okay. So, Paul says, if you are a slave, stay a slave. If you're a slave, when you get saved, stay a slave.
I think it's in Romans.
I think it is too. So that your master will see the love of God in you.
Yeah.
If you're married to an unbeliever, stay married to an unbeliever so that your spouse will be saved through you.
And that's where the compassion of the Lord comes in. Because remember, in the verse that we just talked about, the Lord loved us before we loved him. We were enemies, and he still loved us. We were enemies, and he still loved us. So the reality of that situation is, he loved us even though he knew at that juncture that we couldn't be pushed past the point of being enemies. We would have to choose to accept it. It would have to be choice. Man, if I could control Kara and make her do the things that I wanted her to do, it wouldn't be.
I would be easier to live with.
It'd be easier to live, but it wouldn't be love.
Wouldn't be love.
It would be a commandership. She would be my slave.
Just the way Jesus doesn't force you to change or force you to be sanctified. He allows you to choose to walk in a relationship with him, and he allows you to choose to show him love and surrender. Just in that same way, we get the opportunity to allow our spouse to choose. And it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity that we have. We allow our spouse to choose whether or not to love us enough to do the righteous thing, to live in righteousness in our marriage. And sometimes it's a hard wait. Man, sometimes it's a really hard wait. And I know both of us in our marriage have been at that place at different times where we've been waiting, where David's been waiting on me, or when I've been waiting on David. But the wait is worth it. And I have to tell you, if you're in that position, the Lord will reward your righteousness. The Lord will reward your patience with your spouse if you'll be patient. And the verse that comes to my mind, and my Bible's opened right to it, is Romans 12:9. Love must be sincere. Hate what is evil. Cling to what is good. Hate what is evil. Hate what's evil about your spouse's actions. But love the good in your spouse's nature.
Cling to what is good.
Cling to what is good. In other words, dwell on it. Think about it. Capitalize on it. Build whatever relationship points you can with your spouse on the good. And that way, and Scripture says, and we talked about it last week, love covers over a multitude of sin. Not just love sweeps it under the rug, but love brings mercy. And mercy washes away our brokenness.
And compassion plays a huge part in this humility thing, because what compassion does, compassion looks on the frailties of your mate, or looks on the frailties of people and says, I realize that you're broken, but I love you. I'm willing to deal with the bad in order to get the good. And I'm going to trust that Christ will reveal to you what it is that you need to transform in. And I am going to pray continually for you about those specific things. We cannot change our mate. And the reality is, and it's not pity, Pity is different from compassion. Pity is this place where
you look down. It's a judgmental.
It's a judgmental.
You look down on them.
Compassion is saying it may be that person is not capable of doing that at this point, but I have hope that Christ will work in that. And it's not a personal, and it's so easy to get selfish in that and go, well, maybe someday I'll be rewarded with. That's not the deal. You have to want that for the other person, not for yourself.
Okay.
And that's huge. You have to want that for them, not because it would make you feel better. Ooh, that's unselfishness. And
okay.
That's rough. And
can I take 2 minutes and can I read this chunk of scripture?
Do it.
And then real quick.
We've got 10 minutes.
So I know we do. So Romans 12, beginning in verse 9, just right where we were. And I'll post this. So this is probably one of my top 10 favorite passages in scripture. Simply because it describes God's heart for us, but it describes God's heart for us that we should live in relationship with each other. 12, beginning in verse 9. Love must be sincere. And I'm going to think about this in the context of your relationship.
Yeah.
I'm going to read it just as it comes out of here, but when it says others or everyone, think about your spouse. Love must be sincere. Hate what is evil. Cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor serving the Lord. I'm going to pause there. I'm going to put my emphasis on that. It is really hard. Sometimes marriage kicks your butt. Sometimes it is so hard to keep your zeal and your fervor to love your spouse the way Jesus wants you to. However, it says, never be lacking in zeal, because keep your spiritual fervor, because your fervor should be excited by the thought of serving the Lord. Our fervor in our marriage should never be about making our spouse happy, or never about our spouse showing us how much they love us. It should always be about serving the Lord in serving our spouse.
Yeah.
Okay. Be joyful in hope, and this is what we were talking about. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer for your spouse. Share with God's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. Be hospitable to your spouse. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice, and mourn with those who do not mourn. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of low position. Do not be conceited. Hey, some of us look down on our spouse sometimes when they do knuckleheaded things. And Paul is saying, don't look down, don't be conceited. Hey, you just need to be willing to not be conceited, Remember, we were once enemies of God.
Yeah.
Don't repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everybody. Okay, you can't please everybody all the time. Here's what Paul's saying. Paul's saying be above reproach. Okay? If your spouse says, "Oh, you look fat today." Okay, don't go and punch your spouse. Okay? That's not above reproach. Just say, "Oh, okay."
Are you saying this because you've had experience?
No. Hey, David has told me I looked fat one time. 2 or 3 times. Both.
Whoa! When was that?
All 2 or 3 times he was joking. So you can you don't have to hold that against him. He has said it to me.
How do you keep record of this? I don't remember ever saying that you were overweight.
You said it this past week. It was followed up by laughter. I'm not hammering you. I'm just saying he said it.
Followed up by
but
laughter.
It's meant.
Was this about when you were pregnant?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it wasn't.
Right.
No, you were completely joking.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Let the record show I was joking.
Yeah.
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 Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So don't repay anyone evil for. Oh, wait. I was up here.
You were actually down here.
Okay. So do what is right in the eyes of everybody. You can't please your spouse all the time, but you can be above reproach. In other words, just stay on the steady course of doing the right thing.
Yeah.
If it's possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Don't take revenge, my friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it's written, "It's mine to avenge, I will repay," says the Lord. On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, Feed him. If he's thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. Don't be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good.
As long as it is up to you, live at peace with everyone. As long as it is up to you in your relationship, live at peace with your spouse.
And sometimes you'll do all you can to maintain peace. And sometimes you just have to turn them over to the Lord. However, you still have to fulfill that doing all you can. I do want to just make a commentary.
Sorry, I had to dismiss something.
I just want to make a commentary. There's just the scripture in there that says, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If you do this, you'll heap burning coals on your head. What Paul is saying, if your enemy needs something and you fulfill that need, then carrying around burning coals on a ceramic pot was what they would do in this ancient time in order to show repentance. So, if you serve your enemy, then it will bring them to repentance. Paul also says in this very book,
it's the kindness of the Lord that leads us to repentance.
It is the kindness of the Lord that leads us to repentance. So
I knew where you were going. I was reading your mind.
Yes, you did that one time. Good. I mean, I wasn't. I'm saying that time you got it. Okay. So, anything else you have to add?
No, I think that's the huge gist of it. Man, it is so hard to argue with your spouse and not do these things, because ultimately we come from our own world. We are living in two different worlds that have crashed into each other, and we both come with our difficulties and all this to the table. It's such an amazing thing. Marriage is such an amazing thing that we're able to take two people and create a new world out of it. But it's only got to be by God. It's a huge undertaking that is only possible through the help of God.
Absolutely. And I do want to say this. I want to say these two things. If you are on the wounded end of an argument, never ever fight in order to make your spouse apologize. That's damaging and can end in no good.
Yeah.
If you have hurt your spouse, don't ever feel like you have to fight. If you ever feel like you have to fight for your spouse's forgiveness, then the fight that you're fighting is ultimately not going to be won by anything. Then that chapter we just read, those are the things that are going to win your spouse's heart back. And know that your forgiveness comes from heaven. Your forgiveness doesn't come, hey Rachel, your forgiveness comes from heaven. Your forgiveness is extended to you by your spouse. But ultimately forgiveness comes from Jesus. And so if you ever feel like you have to fight in order for your spouse to forgive you, then I just want to tell you, go ahead and disengage. But I just can't reiterate enough that if you ever are fighting in order to make your spouse apologize, then that's a fight that's ultimately futile. And it's not glorifying God, because that's one of those things that David was talking about a minute ago. He said it, he just didn't say it in those words. He was talking about how you can't ever make your spouse... There's a point at which you have to say, oh, my spouse just doesn't realize this. Sometimes I just have to say...
It has not been revealed to my spouse.
Jesus hasn't showed my spouse this yet, My spouse does not know this about themselves. David may not be self-aware about this specific issue that's just killing me. And so at some point you just have to, like David said, know when to hold them, know when to fold them, and know when to walk away.
And know when to walk away.
And
okay,
so...
2 last rules for fighting. You ready for them?
Yeah.
Number 1, hold hands. When you connect together, these are the 2 last rules, so it's actually number 79. But anyway, when you connect together,
important, you mean?
Yeah, when you connect together in this way, what you're saying is physically, you are saying, I am connected to you. I'm not going to break this bond. We are going to work this out. And also,
you can't fight. You can't punch somebody you're holding hands with.
You can't run away, and you can't punch them. Yeah. This is actually, if I bound us together, this is actually how they used to knife fight and stuff. Anyway, but but it basically connection. What science has revealed to us is there's actually there's certain hormones that are released when physical touch happens. It really makes that coming together in a fight and coming to the table a lot easier. And if you need to separate for a time to let the emotions of the situation...
That's okay.
It's okay. Come back together.
Don't separate in anger, though. Just say to your spouse... I mean, before you get to the point of anger, say...
I need to take a break from this conversation because I'm afraid of... We've never done that. That is awesome. Never thought about it. Yeah, it's good to stay in contact with one another, and also, I said this when we were talking about talking. Don't interrupt. Talk to the other person and look them in the eye. Looking at each other in the eye helps to establish that you're paying attention and you're not on your phone or somewhere else.
I've got one that we've never actually been able to successfully achieve. And
there's a mark, we have not hit it yet.
Okay, I want to try this. And we have never been able to successfully achieve this in like crazy big moments. But when you feel yourself getting angry, I want to suggest this because I had a friend suggest this to me. And I'm going to try it. Now that I'm saying this, you guys have to hold David accountable. David has to agree to me, and you have to hold me accountable. We have to agree next time we're in the fight. I want you to grab your partner's hands, and I want you to just pray. Just say, Jesus, we're fixing to kill each other. Help us not to kill each other. We invite you into this situation. And
pray.
And before things get ugly and we say words we can't take back, we just invite your Holy Spirit here.
It's a lot harder to start throwing things at your spouse when Jesus is in the middle of the conversation.
and knowing that Jesus is present, he's present all the time, but like saying it out of your mouth. So I challenge you this week when you get into a big situation with your spouse, because, hey, we're all real. Grab your spouse's hand and say, all right, let's pray. I know you're going to, like, pop my head like a pimple. But let's stop and pray really quickly. And you have to both engage. One of you can't be like, I'm going to get that person. I'm going to get my spouse. And the other one be genuinely praying. You have to really engage. So anyway.
And once all the air is cleared and you've either moved on or you said what you've needed to say and all that, make up sex. Let it happen, folks. It is part of the process. It is part of the process. The coming back together of us is wonderful. God loves it. It loves it when we enjoy each other in an intimate way. So, yeah, rock and roll.
All right.
Kara's mortified. She's like, you pulled out the S word right at the end. She thought she was going to get through the whole time.
Fight well with each other. Make a commitment. And don't try to employ all of these. Rachel says she's blushing. Sorry about that, Rachel. Make a commitment to one another to employ these. You don't have to throw them all in there all at once because, it's a learning curve for all of us. I know when we try to fix or get back on the right path things that have fallen off, but try to incorporate these where you see your most glaring errors. Sit down and decide, okay, what are we going to incorporate this week? Let's incorporate 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah, 2 to 3 measures.
And then work on those. And then try to maintain those. And then once you've got those down, then put some more in there. But don't do any harm. Actually, Romans says love does no harm. Don't do harm.
Yeah. You got to agree to take the Hippocratic oath for the patient of your marriage. Say, I'm going to do no harm to this sucker. We're only going to do good things here. All right. Cool. Well, okay. What are we talking about next time?
I have down on our list what your marriage needs most, what your family needs most is relationship priorities. So your family, your kids need you to have a good marriage before they have good relationship with you.
Yeah, that's good. So priorities. The next week we'll talk about relationship priorities, and so join us same time, same channel next week. And remember, send questions that you guys have.
Yeah, you want to let them. If you want to disengage, that's cool. If you want to sign off, that's fine. But if you have any questions to ask, we can take questions.
Yeah, we'll hang around.
Should you bring up the issue multiple times? You know what the ideal is? I think that you could sit down and resolve it. So, like if there's an ongoing issue, or just once and leave it. You know what? If there's an ongoing issue, okay, if it's a sin issue, then I would say, you need to resolve it. Number one, we can't be the Holy Spirit for our spouse.
Yeah.
And that goes back to talking about if you make any change in your spouse, then the change that you make in your spouse has to be maintained by the same leverage that you used when you first made the change. So if I say, David, you have to put the toilet seat down or I'm going to smack your hand every time. I don't know. I'm just making up a scenario. David, you have to put the toilet.
Very good about
he
that.
really is. He's great. I have no issues with that. Put the toilet seat down or I'm going to smack you on the head every night when we get in the bed if you leave the toilet seat up. And so I have to continue to reinforce that negatively if he doesn't. But multiple times, there comes a point at which you have to ask the Lord, am I going to accomplish anything by saying something in this moment? And I came to a point, I've come to a point before where I have had to say, okay, Lord, you just have to give me the words to say in this moment because I don't know what's going to fix this situation. You do. I don't know if anything I have to say is going to fix it, but I do know that you can work in this situation by your Holy Spirit. So I need you by your Holy Spirit to give me the words, or I need you to lead me in the direction otherwise that I need to go. Give me peace in my heart if I need to let this problem go.
Yeah.
Show me how you're working. Help me to see how you're working. And we talked about Psalm 9:4 says God is the one who supports our cause as he is enthroned as the righteous judge. And so when we work our cause, when we're like, okay, I'm going to make sure my spouse hears me, I'm going to make sure I get heard, then we dethrone the Lord and we sit in the seat of righteous judge. But our righteousness is not righteousness without Jesus, and we can't come to God without Jesus, So when we dethrone God and we say, I'm going to sit as judge, then we fight our cause. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to fight my cause with the little power that I have. I want the all-powerful, almighty God fighting my cause.
Yeah.
That, with David instead of me.
Okay, I think there's a couple of things that you have to kind of.
So I'll preach at him, and you give him practical application.
I think there's a couple.
Awesome response.
There's a couple of things that you have to ask the question of when you get into your spouse having something that's a long-standing issue that's causing you pain. I think here's some of the questions. Number one, is it a sin issue? If it's a sin issue, then that has to be between the person and the Lord. I know that it affects your relationship negatively, but ultimately helping, praying, maybe
sometimes a counselor.
But yeah, maybe moving that person towards a counselor, or possibly asking them to come to church and going out to eat, with the pastor, moving them towards a relationship with Christ is always a good thing. Yeah, Matthew 18, that sucker. So you talk to them, and in Matthew 18.
Read Matthew 18. There's God gives us the way to handle a dispute in Matthew 18.
So the first step is you talk to them about it. Second step on that is
if they don't receive it,
taking them to a spiritual authority. Ultimately, what that is you go and have the conversation with your pastor. If that still doesn't work, well, then it runs up the chain a couple more times, and that's something that you'd need to talk over with your pastor and that kind of thing. But helping them to understand. So that's for a sin situation. For a situation of abuse, that's counselor right away, no questions. Go to a counselor.
Maybe separation for a time.
Yeah.
Maybe just,
because that's not a situation where life is going to thrive. It's going to be chaos is only going to be maintained at that point. So you need to find a counselor and you need to go to now. Now on the other hand, on the other thing, if it's something that hurts you, you have to ask yourself the question: is this thing that hurts me, is in that relationship situation, how do I approach this to stand on a footing of honor, both with myself and with my husband, that we can both feel honored about how I bring this situation up on a continual basis?
I definitely don't want to beat a dead horse, but I want us to grow for sure. I think, yeah, I think present it to him that way. Maybe say, is this something, that you see? Is this, ask him his perspective on it. Ask him,
There are times where I have said things to Kara, and in the middle of saying them to her, the filter kicks into effect, and we just suddenly break out in a fight about it. In those times, I've found that sometimes it's easier to write a letter, to actually explain myself, to get all of it down onto paper.
I don't know that I've ever gotten one of those letters.
Yeah, we've done it before. But to get all of that information down on a piece of paper so that I can adequately say what it is I'm feeling and how I feel like it needs to, like steps that I believe that we could take in order to solve this. Remember, when you are trying to help somebody, you have to do it for their benefit. This is going to help you in this way in our relationship.
Right.
If it's just a thing where this makes me feel bad, and you fight in order to feel good about it, ultimately that's going to cause disruption. You want to be happy. Happiness is very attainable in a relationship. And I used to have a professor that said, as long as you keep your standards real low, happiness is very attainable.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
But that doesn't have to be the case. You don't have to settle for less, but you guys can find a place where maybe you come to a happy medium. And that happy medium may mean that neither one of you get exactly what you want, but that you guys work together to make the middle happen.
Yeah, we talked about last week how usually in a marriage you have to give up what you want. We said it like this. We said compromise is where no one gets what they want, and we joke, but honestly, the biblical model of marriage is where two lives. Oh, I like that, David. No voices are raised when you write it down. Yeah, and that's true. You don't have to say words that you're afraid that you're going to have to take back later. You don't have to be afraid. You can think very clearly. But did we make it as clear as mud, Erica, or did we help out any?
I think there may be a delay, so so she may be in the middle of typing.
Sure. But, any other questions? We're glad to answer if possible. My husband and I are very different parenting styles. Oh, this is important. How do you guys address that in your house? Ooh, actually,
I think that needs a whole nother section.
Yeah.
That needs a whole nother.
You know what? Okay, can I just give a couple points?
Sure.
Because I believe that's super important as well. The worst thing you can do as a parent is disacknowledge the authority of your spouse in front of your kid.
Yeah, you don't want to do it.
So correcting your spouse in front of your kid is killer on your kid's sense of authority and on your kid's respect for your spouse. So like David is, okay, in my mind, David is ham-fisted sometimes with the kids. David's like, yes, thanks so much for years of marriage and we're still learning.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we're
good.
And we are in the learning as well.
Yeah, we're still learning too. So David sometimes is ham-fisted with the kids, in my opinion. And I'm like, David, lighten up. Okay, so I have said that a couple of times in front of the kids, and so now Isaiah has picked that up, and Isaiah says to David sometimes, he says, "Daddy, lighten up on me, lighten up on me." And so I have to come back now, and I have to say, "Hey, Isaiah, your daddy loves you," and so if he's punishing you in a way that he chooses, then it's because he sees fit, and you have to trust his punishment. 8 here and learning too. Yeah, yeah. I don't think you ever stop learning unless you just are unteachable, or unless you're just unteachable or you die. But so that's super important. Number one, above all, don't correct your spouse in front of your kids. You have to agree on principles. What is the principle? Is the principle that your kids know the Lord and know the Lord's nature, and let your parenting flow from your principles, not from methodologies. David spanks for these trigger. I mean, we have spank triggers. So we spank for lying, defying, and just good old disobedience. So lying, defying, and disobedience. So you have to agree on your spank triggers. You have to agree on principles. Anything else?
I think, okay, so usually you're going to have, and I think here's the two, because usually it waffles between extremes. You have the person, let's take two people. So let's take JoJo and Linda. So JoJo, the husband, is extremely lenient, will let the kids get away with everything, just wants to help them, have JoJo who is kind of like, oh, just let the kids, whatever. And then you've got Linda, who is like ultimate, okay, these are the exact rules that we have to follow, and they must be in the bed by this time, and this and this. Usually you're going to have somewhere between those two, more on right or left, if you have differing styles. The reality of the situation is both of those are correct together, and they have to work in tandem together.
Got kicked out at night. Oh, thanks so much. Great.
Yeah, yep. Bless you.
Yeah. Good night.
Good night. Both of those are good together. Both of those parenting styles are great together, but you got to be able to work in tandem. So you have to figure out exactly when it is that you're going to employ, and at what point you're going to employ both of those things. So are there times where they can get away with anything? Sure, they can go outside and scream their heads off for all that I care. But when they're in this place, this is what we're going to do. Okay, so you've got to come. It's honestly, it's like dealing with the rules, between arbiters for some kind of job. You have to. Mm-hmm. The deal is you have to decide what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and what the rules are. If there's a person who's a real hard rule person, then you have to say, okay, let's give the kids 2 chances, and then after that you have free reign to do whatever it is you want to do.
Okay. Something from my perspective, since I spend more time with the kids, I feel like I should have a little more say, because I'm with them constantly, because I'm the one mostly guiding their
formation.
I'm the one forming most of who they are, just because I'm with them most of the time. I feel like that sometimes. However, you have to, no matter what, you have to invite your spouse into the parenting of your child. And I have found, I worked a little trick on David that he didn't even know I worked on him. But I started inviting him into my parenting and allowing him to have input and asking him for feedback in my parenting. And when I did that, he felt valued enough that he came to the table and he said, okay, I'm willing to, because you listened to me. He didn't say this verbally, but his response was, because you invited me into your parenting, I'm willing to listen to your feedback on my parenting. And so we're pretty different in our styles as well. Yeah. However, the principles that we agree on are the same. And, you got to take a break. Sometimes, God gave your kid that parent as well as he gave those kids you as a parent.
Yeah.
And so God picked you out together as a pair. So know that, your spouse may be rocking it all the wrong way. However, God's able to enable your spouse to do it in a way that your kids need them to, in the way your kids need. Just like he's able to help you. So you have to release that to the Lord at some point and say, Lord, I need you to help my spouse to parent our kids the way you want them to. So
yeah. Well, look, I think
that was really deep. Yeah. I'm exhausted.
I think it's been a great conversation. I think we've had a great night.
So
we should probably let everybody go because my kids are waking up in just a little bit. But we love you guys. Thank you so much for joining us for this series. We look forward to talking with you again next Sunday night. And thanks for hanging around with us to hear some of these things. And
if you have questions,
the after show.
The after show.
Right.
Okay, so if you have questions, just text us, call us, email us, tweet, direct message, Facebook message, post, whatever. And
we'll share a little bit of it on the next after show. Yeah, fight well, guys, this week. Don't hurt each other, all right?
Well, thank you, guys.
We thank you, guys.
We thank you
Charlie,
for listening
awesome.
to us. Y'all are awesome.
All right, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Beliefs on moving in before marriage. I think that I could probably say with certainty that we believe that
marriage comes first.
Yep, sexual relationship comes after marriage.
No, if you can move in with each other and be completely platonic, then here's what I say.
And kudos to you.
There's no place in Scripture where that is
directly prohibited.
But the Lord specifically says that He designed sex for marriage. And so anything else, any other way where sex is present in any other relationship, then, it's just not what God intended, because sex is such a big thing. And so it just ties your lives together.
Yep.
And so anyway.
It is a soul-tying thing.
But there is therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus.
Right.
So
maybe that might be a part of your past, and that's okay. Jesus is able to forgive us of all unrighteousness, and you can make the decision today to get married to maybe the woman that you're living with.
Or what if it's a man?
Or yes, a woman or a man that you are living with. And you can.
Should I get married to you? Yes,
I think we probably should. And you can make make the institute of marriage like God desired for it to be. The institute of marriage like God desired for it to be. With a man and a woman.
I just have to say, you just asked the hard question, one of the hard questions